AI or humans? We're going to have that conversation today about violence prevention in the workplace. Let's get started.
From the front lines of violence prevention, digging into the details that matter. Get ready for a 15-minute fast-paced information download that will prepare you to ask the critical question. When disaster strikes, are we good? Now, here's Jim Bennett.
Welcome to the show. I'm Jim Bennett. Today, we're exploring AI versus human in the critical field of behavioral threat assessment. This discussion is for informational purposes only. While AI offers potential, it carries significant risks like bias and lacks the necessary human understanding for this complex area. Remember, preventing violence relies on trained human judgment. Let's get started.
Welcome, and thank you for joining us. I am really excited about today's episode. The reason I'm excited is I've been thinking about this for a long time. We use AI in a lot of the work we do, certainly in the field of threat assessment, violence prevention. But I'm always kind of questioning, is it better? Is it worse? Is it really supplementing? And I'm sure you have those same questions too at times. Well, I'm going to do an informal study today with you, and this should be a lot of fun. Now, there are studies that exist out there of whether AI is better or just the human intellect is better, or is it a combination. There's some studies out there, especially when it comes to violence prevention, but not a lot. Some of it's not very scientific. We're going to do one today that should be a lot of fun. It's perfect for threat assessment teams. If that's you, bring everyone together. This is great training. It's good stuff. You're going to enjoy it. If you're just a member of an organization, also great stuff. But you got to put your thinking cap on today. You can take notes if you want, take mental notes. It's going to help with the conversation. So let me kind of explain how this is going to work. I'm going to give you a case. I'm going to give you some information about an individual, and then we're going to ask you to go ahead and pause the show for a moment to have some conversation with those around you and ask the question, what are the risk factors that we see in this individual? What do we see as concerning behaviors that may be leading us on a pathway to a violent act? So let's go ahead and get started with the conversation, with the story. Get ready for note-taking now. Gabe is a student in a university with a medical school program. He has been barred from taking a midterm exam after failing to complete coursework. He told classmates about ending it all and warned his instructor, "You better watch your back if you're going to flunk me." So here's some additional key information. He had failed his pediatric clinical rotation after receiving 4 complaints from staff and patients. He has demonstrated anger issues and disruptive behavior in his classes and clinical rotations. He reportedly possesses multiple handguns with substantial ammunition. Recently, he actually showed these weapons to several of his classmates, telling one that his guns were ready. There are divorce documents that exist that state he is cruel and abusive. He has been sending threatening emails to faculty members, not just making verbal threats. Recently, he made approximately 50 Facebook posts expressing feelings of being wronged by the university and stating women should not be in positions to teach or any position of power. He has specifically expressed feeling discriminated against as a male in a female-dominated nursing program. A handwritten list of faculty names with their office locations attributed to him has been found. He told a classmate last weekend he was planning to go out in a blaze of glory. He's facing severe financial difficulties. He has maxed out credit cards and bankruptcy is on the horizon. He left what almost appears to be like a farewell letter to his children that was discovered by his roommate. He has a documented history of depression that goes untreated despite the VA's recommendations. He's refused counseling services when encouraged by the faculty of the school. He previously worked at a VA hospital, and he does receive services directly related to a disability from the VA hospital. So that's a little bit about Gabe. And what I'd like you to do right now is go ahead and stop the video, think about this, ask yourself, ask your teammates about risk factors that exist that may be putting him on a pathway to a violent act. And we'll be right back. Welcome back. Hey, I hope you had an opportunity to have the conversation between you, your coworkers, your team, or just yourself if you want, about some of those risk factors. Really kind of take into consideration those things that could be putting this individual on a pathway to a potential violent act. So I also did the same. I jotted them down real quick. I just did a few. I'm going to share with you what I came up with. Again, this was just a quick take on this. Certainly one can deduct a behavioral change, and this is key as we see this in so many violent actors where there's a clearly defined behavioral change. The school, it's not a refuge for him, but rather a key factor in his anger. That's huge. It appears that he doesn't have a lot more going on in life. School is what it is right now because of those other factors, divorce, finances, etc. And yet the one thing that does exist is actually his pain. He's made those comments verbally and through email that suggests threat and statements that indicate he is potentially on a pathway to a violent incident. He's taken some end-of-life steps, and that is exemplified in his letter to his children. Certainly we see this in many cases where there are those steps that are taken before someone's violent act, knowing that they will probably lose their life, or they're planning on losing their life and they want to communicate to those that are left behind or take care of their affairs. Certainly, we're concerned about the fact that all of these things lead to him having access to weapons and ammunition. He's also had some leakage, information that he's allowed to get out there about his grievances. And what we see in so many of these cases is the basis begins with grievance. The first step on that pathway to potential violent behavior is a grievance against an individual, an organization, a group. They have a concern, they have a grievance that has not been addressed, at least to their liking. So this is a key step, and it does exist out there, and it specifically is disparaging towards the school and women. There also appears to be possibility of some planning that's in progress. You know, the map or the information about the instructor's office existed out there. His finances are also in shambles. And so that is one of those big life-altering things where it can fester in a feeling of no hope because I have no money. I'm on a pathway where I'm not going to be able to recover from that. So that's my list. We're going to take another pause for you to have a conversation with your team or just in your own head about what we can do to manage this. So for threat assessment teams, this is spot on what you do. Developing that management plan, looking at what those mitigating factors are. For everyone else, listen to what I just said, same thing. Think of those steps you could take to best prevent this from becoming a violent incident. Take a moment and come back with us. Welcome back. Okay, I took a couple of minutes as well to quickly go through this and just jot down a few things that I saw that I would put into a management plan. Basically, how to help mitigate this from progressing any further and protect those people that could potentially become victims. So first of all is law enforcement involvement, as well as, depending on your type of organization, the safety and security elements of the organization. Looking for counseling services that may work for this individual. If you recall, I commented that I guess he had sought out some assistance through the VA. It wasn't effective for him. Let's see if there's something else out there that does work for him. Certainly in this case, monitoring and surveillance is important. To monitor what he's doing, where he's at, etc., is extremely important. I think there's also value in having a conversation. We need to talk to this individual because he has these very strong grievances against the organization as well as instructors. And maybe there's something that we haven't addressed, something that he has on his mind that we weren't even thinking about. So having the right conversation with the right individuals, good stuff. I think it's important that we reach out to potential victims, is that we are informing them of concerns or threats that might be geared towards them and providing them with appropriate safety plans to best protect themselves. He also is obviously failing in school and is in need of coaching and tutoring. Can we provide those services? Have they been provided in the past? How about school financial assistance? He's obviously in financial crisis, and that's going to affect his student aid. So that's important as well. And then also, I made a note of contact the VA hospital. So sometimes in cases like this, things become siloed and we don't tell anyone else. And yet, it's important that we look at big picture. What other areas could be affected by a potential violent act of a person known to us? So that's kind of my quick down and dirty list. Hopefully yours is similar. Hopefully yours is much longer. Now here's where we're going to do the AI thing. We're going to dive into a conversation with AI. I'm going to provide AI, and you'll see this, and I'll also walk us through this. I'm going to ask AI, after giving them this, whatever you want to call it, as risk factors as well as a management plan. So let's get into that. Okay, here it is. I got the response from Claude AI, which is the one I use. There's many different platforms out there. Certainly use what works best for you. But again, this is a very unscientific experiment, but it's super interesting. So compare his responses to yours and what you have in your notes. I'm going to compare them to mine. Keep in mind, we spent probably a couple of minutes. I don't know how long exactly you spent on it, but I spent only a minute or two on it. And ultimately, Claude probably spent 12 milliseconds, and this is what he came up with. So risk factors for potential violence, pathway to violence indicators, progression from ideation to planning with a blaze of glory statement, farewell letter to his children, and surveillance of potential targets. Grievance collection, multiple perceived injustices focused on the university and female authority figures with increasing fixation and resentment. Means and intent, possession of multiple handguns with ammunition and willingness to display weapons while making threatening statements. Leakage of intent, multiple communications about plans to classmates, threatening emails to faculty, and extensive social media declarations. Triggering events, academic failure, divorce proceedings, financial collapse, creating a perfect storm of stressors. Absence of protective factors, rejection of mental health services, deteriorating social support, and untreated depression. Identity-based violent extremism, misogynistic ideology targeting women's in authority positions, military background, possible tactical knowledge combined with service-related mental health issues. Preparation behaviors, creation of a target list with schedules and locations showing planning and intent. Wow, that is a great list. Now let's take a look at the management plan that Claude is recommending. Immediate activation of a threat assessment team with local law enforcement involvement. Implement temporary suspensions and campus ban while the assessment is conducted. Obtain court order for weapons restriction removal based on direct threats. Pursue emergency psychiatric evaluation given suicide risk and threats to others. Implement protection measures for threatened faculty, such as security escorts, office relocation, schedule changes. Establish clear communication protocols for all involved parties. Consult with the VA healthcare providers regarding history and treatment options. Consider Title IX implications of gendered threats and discrimination complaints. Review and preserve all communication evidence, emails, social media posts, etc. Identify and interview other potential witnesses, classmates, roommate, ex-spouse. Conduct comprehensive violence risk assessment by qualified professionals. Develop contingency plans for various scenarios, including potential campus lockdowns. Establish conditions for potential return, if appropriate, including mandatory mental health treatment. Coordinate with local law enforcement for monitoring and rapid response capability. Consider legal options, including restraining orders or criminal charges for threats. Provide support resources for affected faculty, staff, and students. Document all aspects of the case and intervention steps taken. Now, Could I have come up with all that if we had more than 2 minutes to work on it? Well, I would hope so. I think a lot of that's pretty straightforward and things that would easily come to mind, especially if we're using a structured professional judgment tool or a tool like the BTAG. And you can learn more about that in our squad room as well, or on our website of arewegood.net. But here's where we go from here. What a comparison. Pretty cool stuff. Now, this was actually based on a real case, and I'm going to discuss that in the squad room of the Good Squad. So go to our Patreon site, the Good Squad, and get into the squad room so you can hear the real story, so you can have some closure to this. Sorry, we only get 15 minutes, so I got to give it to you in there. And then I'm also going to debrief a little bit of this as well. Hopefully your teams will join me in there, because some great conversation. And I hope as well you'll have conversation about what we just went through in that comparison between humans and the time factors in assessing and AI. Great, interesting stuff.
Remember, this conversation was purely informational. AI tools have serious limitations and ethical risks in this field. Effective threat assessment relies on human expertise and judgment. For real concerns, always consult qualified professionals.
All right, so thank you again. Again, go to our Patreon site for the Good Squad to get into that squad room. And as always, be sure to ask the question before disaster strikes, are we good?